I'll pass it over to Alvaro, who will share some of the updates that we are so excited about here at Felt.
All right, thanks so much, Anya. So as most of you probably know, we just launched a huge new improvement to Felt, which is that we're now supporting raster data. And I just want to make sure that everyone's, has the basics covered on what raster data is. You've probably already worked with vector data, which are, points and lines and polygons. But today we're doing something a bit different. So to illustrate that, I'm going to take you to one of my favorite web apps that I really like. It's made, data editing powerful and collaborative and made it web-based, which is really awesome. It's got a classic green and white logo. I'm talking, of course, about Google Sheets. So raster is basically a grid of values, right? It's you can call it a grid, a matrix, basically a lot of numbers aligned in rows and columns. And that might not make a lot of sense to most humans. Oh, I didn't share access to myself, did I? Okay, let's
Yeah, we need
do something about it. Well, no, that I can share. Oh, I've got the wrong screen, sorry. Give me just a second. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so give me a moment. Why is this not mine? It definitely should be mine. Let's do it over here. All right, so a raster is basically a grid of values. And while this just looks like a lot of numbers, a bit of mumbo jumbo, we can actually just make this a bit more comprehensible for humans and, style it based on the intensity of every cell. And that gives you something that makes a lot more sense, or at least is visible for us. So here we turn these numbers into the Felt logo, which is pretty cool. And this is actually just an image, right? Every pixel represents an intensity of a color. Normally, if we only have a single value per pixel, we're talking about a grayscale image. If we have multiple values per pixel, we're talking about different bands, raster bands. So normally we have an RGB image or different kinds. And today we're going to be working with this kind of data in Felt. And you might be thinking, well, doesn't Felt already kind of support images? Because I mean, I can drag an image into Felt. And that's true. You might have already worked with, historical maps or other kinds of raster data, but that experience was kind of underwhelming, right? Like here's, for example, just an image that I pulled a JPEG from Wikipedia. It's a historical map of India. And I mean, you could bring it into Felt and drag it around and try to get it in the right spot. We could maybe zoom here, lower the opacity a bit so that we can try to get it to match the base map, trying to get Sri Lanka to match there. But as you can see, the northern parts don't really match that well because it's in different projections. So everything gets a bit fuzzy. And you might be thinking, well, there has to be a better way. And in fact, there is. So instead of working with plain images, we're going to talk today about raster files. Raster files are basically images that are georeferenced, which means that they have the information, the metadata, to know where they have to be placed on Earth. So fortunately, there are some really good sources for data like this for historical maps that are georeferenced. And today we're going to be looking at the David Rumsey map collection, which is an amazing collection of historical maps, thousands of them all around the world. And in particular, I've picked one of them, which is a map of La Palma. You might know this island from the Madonna song, La Isla Bonita. It's an island in the Canary Islands, one that I like a lot. And we're going to bring it into Felt. So you can download this as a special kind of file, a GeoTIFF. And now, as we can do with vector, just, take it and drag and drop it into Felt. Now, since my bandwidth isn't spectacular while I'm screen sharing and uploading a heavy file at the same time, I'm just going to skip this part and go ahead and show you the final result. I can assure you it's pretty quick, but in any case, let's just go and see it. Okay, so we have something similar, a historical map that is now already placed conveniently for us in the right place. It's already been rotated to the right and scaled to the right size. And we can go ahead and, as we did for a regular image, lower the opacity and see that it matches the base map pretty well. So now we could do all sorts of stuff. We could start drawing on top of this and saying, I'm going to map out what the volcanic situation looked in La Palma in 1953, which is very different from what it looks like now in 2023. There was a massive eruption, a very important eruption here last year. So that's Felt with static raster files. But raster files, raster or satellite imagery have the particularity that they can be really, really big. So sometimes they're not served as files, they're served as a hosted service. Basically, they're already tiled, and you can bring those tiles into Felt as well. So we're going to look at a couple of examples for that. And you can do this instead of using the Upload Anything tool in the bottom right. You can do it in the Felt menu, going to File, Add from URL. So that's what we're going to do. I've got a URL here for a planet tile service. I'm just going to call this planet tiles. And as you can see, very similarly, I can add raster layer. It's adding it now. And I'm going to be able to do something very similar. I can zoom to fit, so I can immediately go and see where my data is. And in this case, we've got satellite imagery that's covering the middle latitudes of Earth. So I can just, check it out and see how it compares to our base map. For example, I was just playing around here looking at the Caribbean before, which I always find really stunning with the colors. And you can see just a lot of swirls and eddies in the water, which, I don't know, I find look really, really beautiful. We can do a comparison. Let's see how that, checks out against our satellite. Toggle this one off. Looks a lot better. So I'm glad we added this layer. By the way, the island processing was done. We have this one duplicated now, so I'm just going to delete it. Okay. So that was cool. You can add raster as static files. You can add raster as URLs. Many kinds, if you're familiar with these names, XYZ, TMS, WMTS. We parse the information in the URL, try to look for metadata automatically if it's there, and then bring you all the good stuff. Like, for example, where the bounding box is so you can zoom to fit. Okay, but what happens if that process fails? Because it sometimes does. There is just sources out there that don't have this kind of metadata. So I'm going to add another one. This is from Open Aerial Map, which is an awesome source if you don't know it. And it has just some openly sourced, really, really high precision, normally drone aerial imagery. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to add from URL, add my raster URL. In this case, I'm adding one for a neighborhood in London. Okay, so you'll notice this time we're adding our raster layer. It's ready. Let's zoom to fit. Oh no, this data needs to be manually located the first time. Zoom into it on the map. Why is this? Well, because we weren't able to find any metadata out there, and we can try and fetch some tiles here and there and see if the data's there. But when it's really, really detailed, really deep into the map, a really high zoom level, that's just really hard to do. So fortunately, we know where this is in this case. I know that I'm adding something that's around the Michael Faraday School in London. It's next to Portland Street. So I'm just going to use our geocoder for that, our search. Portland Street, London. Ontario, Canada. No, it's not work. Okay, that looks good. All right, somewhere around here. Let's see. Boom. There are my tiles. And this is really nice too. Zoom to fit updated for London neighborhood. So we only have to do this once. But if I'm coming back to this map or something, now zoom to fit is working. So we took that metadata and we've now updated it so that you can keep on using it in your felt map, which I think is pretty sweet. So let's just take a look at this school. You'll notice that this imagery is mind-blowing. I was playing around with it before, and I was just seeing like, oh, maybe I want to share this with the school board. This, this painting here, you might just want to do something about it. Maybe repaint, because that's not looking great. Annotation is actually a really cool use case for satellite imagery, because if you've played with this kind of data before, you might have noticed that it's just not really frequent for web-based GIS apps to support this kind of data. But fortunately, I felt we do. Okay, before finishing off here, I wanted to show a couple of really cool maps that some of our users have made, because, they're just very impressive. So I've got two maps here. One is from Chris Soriano, which we've had presenting here before, and has already been playing with raster a bit. And this is a map of Paterson, New Jersey in 1950. So Chris did two things. First, uploading the raster to felt, which is already really cool. But then he used a tool called Segment Anything, which was open source by Meta. You might have heard about it, to extract polygons from the image. So he extracted all of the buildings that you could see in this 1950 map and then turned them into a vector layer, which is really, really cool. He did this outside of felt and then brought the vector layer in. Hopefully we'll be able to do this one day inside felt as well. Another one I wanted to show is this map from Angelica Rodriguez Arriaga. It's a map of the water history in California. And just there's a lot of stuff going on here. Angelica used vector layers and annotations and elements and layers from our data library, also use raster. So you can see all the subsidence that's happening here in California in the Central Valley, one of the most rapidly subsiding areas in the world. So anyway, it's been 2 days since the launch. We've already got some users making stunning raster maps, and I just wanted to show it a bit and see what y'all make. And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alvaro. This was amazing. And yeah, if you have any maps that you're playing with Raster and you want to share them, please join our Slack community. We really love sharing maps with each other and discussing them and sharing tips and tricks. It's super fun, and I really encourage you to join. And now I really want to go into our customer panel to just demonstrate a lot of different ways people are putting Felt to work. And I want to start with Nicholas, who's a data scientist at the University of Chicago. Nicholas, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. Just going to show you today about a project that I'm working on right now. I'm a data scientist, and I currently do a lot of geospatial computation research. And as part of one project, we're focused on informal settlements and developing automated algorithms for detecting informal areas based on just looking at the physical characteristics of a street block. So looking at streets and looking at building footprints. And one of our algorithms, what it does is it looks at the number, it basically counts the number of building parcels that are between the least accessible structure in a street block and the nearest street access. And so blocks where there's many internal layers of buildings are more likely to be informal settlements because basically you need streets to have access to things like sanitation, water, emergency responders. Basically all kinds of public services require street access. And so if there's many layers of internal buildings that are packed in, it likely doesn't have it. So we have an algorithm that looks and counts that. And the resulting output after we run that process is this map and an index. And so this count is the number of internal building layers to the nearest external street for each block. And so you can see the areas that are yellow have over 8 layers of buildings before the least accessible structure can get the nearest street access. And so it's basically like a useful way to detect informal areas in countries. You can just kind of quickly zoom in. You can see these areas right here. They do have a lot of, it's more formalized, and it's more formalized. You can see that it's like a lighter color with a lower number. Whereas these yellow areas, there's more layer, it's more likely informal. And I can kind of quickly show, let me go to the satellite view and hide the layer. You can see this block. All of these are internal buildings in this area without any without almost any street access. And so it is likely an informal settlement because there's probably limited services. And so turn it back to this with the layer on. And the one way that we've been using Felt is we intend to, with community partners, Slum Dwellers International is an organization that we work with, and they have their own process. It's more manual, where they go down to the ground level and they sort of map their community that they've identified as an informal settlement. And that's somewhat manual process, and there aren't like great collaboration tools available for them to label what they see as their own community and where they see the beginning and end of their area that they feel is like informal or affected by limited services. And so what I've done here is layered on actual delineations developed by Slum Dwellers International, by the slum dwellers themselves. These black areas are areas that they've identified as informal settlements. So we hope to use Felt to validate our data with sort of their own sort of ground truthing process and slum profiling. And then we're also hoping to just let them use felt because it's maybe a little bit more easier tool to collaborate and for them to annotate and to label and to profile areas within their city that they feel are informal or affected with limited services. And so you can kind of see these, like, all of their areas kind of overlap with the areas that are yellow, but we have a much larger, we're capturing many more areas. And so it's kind of a question to see, you know, maybe we could use our index to augment or supplement their process. So it's a little more automated, less tedious, and we can get a better sense in a standardized kind of scalable way of where informal settlements are located. And we've done this for all of sub-Saharan Africa, but I'm just showing you Sierra Leone. So that everything I've got. Happy to answer questions, but yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. This is fascinating. Really cool that you're using it for ground proofing. Well, next up we have Caroline, who works as a GIS analyst and also has some maps to share with us.
Hello, you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Just getting sharing figured out. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Awesome.
Okay. Hi, my name is Caroline. I'm a GIS specialist and cartographer. And one of the reasons I'm really interested in felt is that while I have a lot of different tools in my mapping toolbox, sometimes I get questions from friends or family or someone I know who wants to do a mapping project, and I want to put the tools in their hands, but asking them to buy an expensive piece of software or to learn for many, many months how to use a certain software package is sort of, you know, I'd rather have something I can give them that's a little bit easier for them to use. So I've been exploring with really, really simple solutions in felt to figure out what's possible to hand over to someone else and tell them, here, you can make maps for yourself without a GIS degree. So this one is just a little demo map for a trip in Costa Rica. So what I've pulled together in here is I just went right into the felt library and found the terrain, which is this, and the beautiful bathymetry to put around it. And then I also added countries, and it took me a little bit of poking around, but I asked for help and got good help from the felt staff for how to just highlight one feature in a layer instead of just having all of them in here. So I've got Costa Rica highlighted. And then this was a paddling trip that I went on with a bunch of other people from the US. And so I wanted to show one of the places that we stayed. So I added a feature on top. And I also wanted to show the rivers that we paddled on. So I have the rivers in teal, and then the dark blue ones are their parent rivers. So the river that they flow into. And those can be clicked on to show their name. And I had also, when I talk about this trip, I talk about how the rivers are generally split between the Caribbean side and the Pacific side by the major watersheds. So I've got that Caribbean Pacific divide in here, and these were the rivers and the Caribbean Pacific divide I imported as shapefiles or GeoJSONs or something like that. And I thought that this was a really nice thing to pass over to some of my friends who were on the trip, and they can add their own symbols, and they can add pictures, and you can kind of see this one has a picture of the place in it. So this one has not been, we haven't been using this very long. I just kind of put it together, and Anna asked me to share it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. This is really cool. And next up, we have Marton, who also created a really interesting map of Austria, I think. So Marton, please take it away.
Hey, it's just partly Austria. But 1 second. Can you see the screen? That's the first question.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is basically what you see. It's Austria, Slovakia, Ukraine, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, and Hungary, mostly Hungary. I was working at Outdoor Active, what is like a company where you can plan your casual activity, where do you go to bike, or where do you go to hike, for example. And then I worked for them for 2 years, and there I created a bunch of cycling routes. Basically in Hungary, you can see there is many points. The points are representing thermal baths, and this is basically a biking network connecting all of the thermal baths to each other. It goes also to Austria and all of Hungary's surrounding countries. And I was like really amazed by felt that, you know, I just get the GPX from our platform, and then I can somehow visualize it in a nicer way, and then I can also put links to it. So if we zoom in, for example, you can also put even parts of it, and then like here is like one etap where you can do like a multi-stage route, and you can clearly, nicely visualize basically your work, what you did. And then you can, for example, present it in a much more better way. And then with the links, it's super easy to reach the actual routes, and then you can download the app or whatsoever. So it's really good to promote, for example, such a thing. So this Outdoor Active is like, I don't know if you heard about Komoot or from All Trails, it's like a similar company, but they, for example, missing this kind of visualization. Like this is like just a small topic around it, biking from thermal bath, from hot springs to hot springs. And then I just was really, really fascinated by it. And also I was doing like a different map, like for a smaller business. This is basically a bakery, and they are doing service that they are bringing out the bread every morning to different villages. Here you can see the in the north, the bakery, and then the different villages, cities, where they're bringing it on everyday basis, and where they just bringing out their stuff on the weekends. And this is like, you know, it's quite interesting how small businesses and different businesses could use maps in a new form, because they just have a list of the settlements where they are bringing it. And then this, like, you know, using this tool would make much more easier for everyone to visualize their work or like their business. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marton. This is really cool. I loved both use cases. And next up we have Eli, who has a really interesting development that he was working on, that can be a tool that can be really helpful for folks using Felt.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can start just by, my name is Eli Poussin. I'm a planner with the Baltimore City Department of Planning, and also a adjunct professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, for their GIS certificate program. And so we have been using Felt for the program that I work with in the context of planning what we call primary walking routes that are designated for sidewalk improvements around a number of different school buildings that are getting rebuilt. And so we initially did some data analysis actually in R. It had previously been done by predecessors in my position in ArcGIS with student address data to sort of identify where students were coming from when they were walking to school. But once that analysis had been complete, it was actually really great to use Felt to input notes that we received from students. We had folks physically drawing with crayons on a big map to be able to identify issues like where a bus stop is needed or where signal timing changes are needed. But then we also actually used, because we have some funding for ADA ramp upgrades, we were able to switch into the satellite view to sort of zoom in and basically look for like, is there or is there not a detectable surface on the at the intersection, and sort of flagging locations where we know repairs may be needed. But ultimately, a lot of the folks that we work with do like rely on static maps. That's kind of sort of trading around PDFs is a lot of how we get the our work out into the world. And so I had been using Felt as basically my editor, but then doing a lot of my map making using ggplot2 in R. If folks aren't familiar with R, it's a sort of statistical programming language that has a lot of capacity for data visualization and mapping using a package called SF, the Simple Features package. But I'll share in the chat. I actually, after meeting with Anna a couple of weeks ago, and one of her colleagues sort of introduced me to the sort of simplicity of being able to get GeoJSON out of Felt map URL. And so I was able to build a simple package that called Felt R that actually allows me to just like read that map that we were just looking at. I can read directly from the URL into a data frame, and then you can sort of start plotting the features from the Felt map directly within R. And mapping the attributes from the Felt map directly onto your output plot. So for instance, using the Mapbox API package, I can just quickly spit out a sort of like a custom formatted version of those ramps that we were just looking at that could use to support field work, or just could produce a PDF to send over to my colleagues with the Department of Transportation. The other thing that I was just playing with this morning, and I've used Felt on a few different occasions for the image features. Even though the rasters are really exciting, I feel like the existing image features have been really handy. For instance, we're working with this school where the building is so new that it actually doesn't or didn't, when I was working on this initially a couple months ago, didn't include the new addition on the satellite image. And so I was able to pull in a base, the conceptual site plan from one of the past presentations and sort of drop that in here and do a sort of rough georeference using that. But when you export those as features, of course, they just come in as polygons. And so what I realized is that it would be possible, and I've added this sort of read felt raster function, that it's possible if you still have your image URL or file path, you can use another package called, I think it's Raster pick is the name of it. And using that, you can actually read the image and put it together with polygon geometry from Felt and create what's called a spat raster or spatial raster object. So for instance, this is a map that I kind of like roughly georeferenced in Felt from the Library of Congress that then you can convert into a spatial raster object, and you can look at it using, this is the tmap function, or using the Terra package, I can export it to a TIFF. And what I can actually do, so here's the map in its original form from the Library of Congress. And then if I go test.tiff and just pull this in, hopefully it uploads and takes a moment to process. And then you should be able to see it comes in with that same sort of geometry that it had in the original. So 92%. There we go. So so yeah, they just if there's anyone else who's combining Felt with sort of like Python or R, I think it's really like an extensible kind of tool. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Eli. This was super impressive. Yeah, I can see a lot of reactions in the chat and in across all the cameras. Well, next up we have Rainier, who will share his map as well. Rainier, please take it away. Oh, okay. I think Rainier might have disconnected. It's okay. Let's in that case, let's just go into Q&A. Mamata, I know that we were collecting questions on the map. Let's see what we have.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself first. It wasn't clear where to easily do that.
Sorry,
Um,
guys, I just missed
oh.
my slot.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Did you lose connection? Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's just like I just at my destination, and I just lost signal. But
Oh.
yeah, if I can share my screen still.
That's perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So yeah, basically what we're doing, we're a company that focuses on helping people improve the energy efficiency of their homes. And we're working with the city of Wolverhampton, which is in the Midlands in the UK, onto energy improvement. And what's been really great is we can both plot like the individual homes that are sort of trying out our service. So which is all of these, and can track like what are they doing and what are they sort of doing in this process. And then overlay it with the sort of data from the city and from the UK government on deprivation. So in this case, we can see that the sort of red areas is where there's more deprived areas. We can sort of start to map, okay, out of the people that are participating in our pilot, which parts of the city are they in? Are we getting enough people from the more deprived areas where the council really wants to target? Or is it more, at the moment, we're seeing that it's more centered in this part of the city. And then, yeah, we're also like looking at these control wards. And, I'm a physicist by training, and I've been like doing software development, and I've always been interested in mapping and I really understand the power of mapping, but for some reason, like never really got into the GIS world. And with Felt, I can really feel like I finally have this power of mapping at my fingertips. And that's been a really great experience, especially in being able to sort of like really label and place different data sources and combine them. So yeah, it's been a really, really good experience.
Thank you so much, Rainier. This is super impressive. A really cool map, and glad that you could create something like that with your experience. Awesome. Well, and next up we have Q&A with Mamata and with Alvaro. Mamata, please take it away.
Okay. Amazing presentations. Okay, Alvaro, we have a couple questions here. One is about, I'm noticing that the YouTube player is not showing when I view a map in another account. Is that a temporary issue?
Right, so we do have a known issue where the play button in a YouTube link won't appear in certain cases, depending on what the URL is. Whose question is this?
This is from Tom Mulaney.
Okay. So Tom, if you can just send us a map link and the URL, we'll look into it, because that seems like a bug for sure.
Oh, hey, just so you know, it's happening for all of them now. Every map
for
I
all of
have,
them?
yeah, I'm going through all my maps, and anytime I put a YouTube link, it's there when I just insert it. If I hit refresh or just view it later, they're all gone. The link is there, but you can't, the player is gone.
Do you know, I mean, I know we identified this and it depends on what the YouTube link is like. I think it depends if it's pasted using the share link in YouTube or it's using the tab URL. And those seem to like cause different behavior. But in any case, if you could just send us like an example or two, we'll take a look because yeah,
That
that
sounds
should be
good.
solved.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Once you pick, this is from Martin. Once you paste in raster links, can you edit or view? Can you edit/view the link?
That is actually not visible right now, but it's something we also have as a quick follow-up to the raster launch.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Okay, any possibility of support for ArcGIS image server links for importing rasters? And this is from Eli, I believe.
That's interesting, actually. Like we have been collecting a couple of different kinds of services. I don't think we've done ArcGIS image server yet. But yeah, once again, like we're actively developing on this. So if you can send us a link of an image server that you have that's public out there, we can try and take a look and see if it's something that we can turn into. I mean, as long as it's tiled, maybe. Well, we have to see. No promises.
Any plans for more customization for symbology, especially shape of symbology and the option to add custom symbology?
I think that one's for you, Monica.
Yeah, so yes, we're definitely working on more visualization types coming down pretty soon. And I guess, sorry, I'm having a hard time with like getting, okay. Anya didn't ask that question, but could whoever asked the question just give a little bit more detail, shape of symbology and the option to add custom symbology? Is that like pattern fills and things like that, or? Okay, well, the answer is yes, we're working on more visualization types and also the data styling as well as elements. Okay, so does Felt have an API to integrate into existing tools? For example, we are building a custom data platform to enable underserved communities to elevate themselves. We would like to add a map visualization layer. We would love that for that to be felt. And also the new raster supports HUT.
Okay, so thanks for the raster support shout out. And regarding the API, we have some work on our roadmap. It doesn't have a schedule release yet. So all I can say is, you know, if you're familiar with Felt, you've been following this, you know, we ship pretty fast. So just keep your eyes peeled because we like surprising folks.
Anya, this one is for you. How do we access the Felt Slack community?
I'm gonna post a link in the chat right now. So please, let's join our Slack community. Just a second.
Thank you. Any plans to link QGIS to Felt, perhaps via plugins?
I mean, I'm sorry to say the answer is kind of similar to the API. Just keep on the lookout.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, this is something we're exploring because we're also heavily investing in QGIS. If you followed the announcement, Felt is the only flagship sponsor of QGIS right now. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
Are you considering the possibility of converting map elements to rasters? For example, converting a marker drawing into a raster layer. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we already have a somewhat hacky workaround for vector, right? You can output as GeoJSON in the upload. So yeah, more conversion between elements and layers is something we definitely want.
Okay. So we got some okay, so this is about more symbology types, and we got a follow-up. I was referring to the symbology as there are only circles to showcase points, as opposed to showing symbols that would be created via vector software like Inkscape or Adobe Illustrator. Yes, so yeah, that can happen a couple of different ways. So yes, thanks for the clarification, and icon support and then custom icon support. So that's definitely something that we are that we've been thinking about. It's not there yet, but I guess the theme is keep your eyes out, and this is great feedback to push features.
Yeah, this is super, super useful, even if the responses are kind of vague. Sorry about that, but you know, roadmaps evolve and change, but this is really great. Also to just like have a feel on what people want. Oh, there's one more question in the chat actually. Rainier says, true mapping newbie, any ways to create statistics for things like areas, boundaries? An example is, in my case, the number of homes within a certain characteristic in a certain ward. Yeah, so kind of once again, we are starting to think about, you know, what these kind of operations might look like, but it's not planned and doesn't have a release time, but something we're exploring for sure. It is true that for a lot of these kind of more analytical operations, a really good companion is QGIS, as was mentioned before. Felt serves as a really good visualization tool on top. Now you can do these kind of operations quite easily in QGIS. For example, there is a count points and polygons analysis, or you can just filter a point layer with a polygon layer and then count that, and then you can bring that into Felt as well.
Okay, any more live questions? If you haven't already asked your question on the map or in the chat, let's just pause for any questions before we close the session. I see in the chat, Kartik also says, segment anything in Felt should be amazing. Is it being considered in the roadmap, especially with the raster features?
Yeah, so I mean, segment anything is really, really cool. It's just way too new for us right now, so can't make any promises regarding Felt, but it's kind of the same as, you know, the analysis. Just we're still in the phase of exploring and seeing what folks need.
And we have another question in there too. Any contact info for companies to talk about use cases for Felt? Justin, can you give us a little more information? Like, you work at a company that would like to share use cases for Felt, or are you looking for other companies using Felt with use cases?
I can answer this question both ways, in case it will make things easier. If you have a cool use case that you would like to show, just reach out to us at support@felt.com, and we will definitely set up some time with you and explore it and possibly feature it on our blog. Or if you're looking for other companies and individuals using Felt, I just recommend checking Felt blog. We have customer stories from different organizations, and we have monthly roundups of all the amazing maps folks are creating. So it's a good source of inspiration.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mic in time too. So my name is Justin. I work for a company. We uses QGIS and Azure products heavily, but like we do have like a lot of things that sometimes we want to share with our clients, and sometimes we want to create maps. And I felt is really great to just visualize things on top of everything. And even with a simple shapefile and whatnot, I think it's a great product. I'm just wondering if, because I see, I think it was Rachel send out all these emails about reach out and whatnot about use cases. I was wondering if there's like a contact email that, you know, if we're kind of wondering, or does this functions work in Felt, and do you have plans for things like that? Some kind of context, so that if we are thinking of visualizing some data sets into something, we could perhaps, I don't know, ask and share knowledge and kind of see if what's there that you guys are capable of in terms of, or in the pipeline in terms of using Felt. And I guess for Felt, it's also a win-win because you are looking for use cases from the commercial aspect as well, right? How people use it and how in the industry you use it, right? So I was just wondering if there's any kind of a contact information about it, so that, you know, I go back to my team, and if we have some use cases that we can share, then we can definitely, you know, contact Felt. Is that clear?
Yes. So
Yes. And, oh, go ahead.
go ahead, go Alvaro.
Yeah, I think just simply write out to support@felt.com and you'll definitely get an answer.
Thank you.
I'll write that in the chat as well in case anyone wants to look that up later. Support@felt.com.
We read all the emails that we get, so we can promise you that.
Okay.
Okay, well, any other questions for Alvaro or Mamata or any of the speakers? And
I have something actually. It's not a
Okay.
question, but I just remembered that, you know, during the excitement of the launch, I forgot to share. We've also got some new data library layers, which are really, really cool. So if you haven't checked those out in the data library, I've seen some folks using them on your maps. We now have layers for buildings, for roads, for trails and tracks. So just a lot of just really cool general reference type of layers that are really useful. You know, covers of the land and of the ocean and seas, extracted from OpenStreetMap, so they match, you know, the base map at all zoom levels. So those can really come in handy, especially if you're working with Raster, because they're just really good as overlays on top of all this stuff.
Oh, I love this color combination with NASA, black marble, and orange. It's so pretty. Okay. Well, if you have any questions, you can always ask us your question or share your map on our Slack community. Please join us. It's super fun. And we're gonna keep hosting these events every month, so stay tuned. We're always announcing them on social media and on Slack. And thanks to all our amazing speakers today. We're really impressed by your maps, and really, hopefully all the people in the audience learned something new today and learned something that is relevant to their use case. So we'll see you on the internet. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll be back with new meetups very soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.